So thank you all so much again for this talk. And this seems like a highly anticipated. We had a lot of folks interested. So a lot of you are live now, but of course, we're going to have this on the BNI USA YouTube page. So we thank you so much for being with us. We are super excited for this month's talk. And of course, speaking with folks who have served ahead of Veterans Day. So thank you so much for joining us here, and to our guests. So I wanted to first introduce our esteemed panelists. And so I have the pleasure of knowing both of you who are here, and hopefully Andy can make it over. But so we have Akira Gunn, who is one of the amazing, talented people who handles talent acquisition in HR for us out of Charlotte. So Akira, thank you so much. And Akira, just so everyone knows again, which branch of the military did you serve in?
Army.
That's right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you for your service. And I can't remember, Martin, which one, but Martin, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, which branch of the military did you serve in?
Go Navy, beat Army. Navy all the way.
Okay. Yeah. So this is great. So perfect. All right. So we'll wait to see. I won't reveal where Andy is. So if he comes, then maybe he's a tiebreaker or he's part of another branch. So, but thank you both. And Martin, of course, is the director of Core Field Operations in the East, and also happens to be my boss, my new boss. So thank you so much for being here with us. You both make a profound difference in the organization. And again, thank you for your service. So we had talked about some topics, whenever people think of diversity, they don't think of some of the other different identities. And veterans are definitely can be categorized certainly in their own group. And there's such a large population of veterans. And we really wanted to talk to those who have served, right, who have been in the military, because life can be very different outside of it. And so we thank you for this conversation. And just based on the feedback that we were getting when we put this out there, we wanted to know more from our members and our directors who were in the military, right? So I'm going to ask first, and one of you can take this, and then if you both have an answer, I would love to hear it. What motivated you to join the armed forces? So who wants to answer first?
I'll go first. So I come from a military family. My great-grandfather served in World War I and World War II. And then my uncle, who I share a birthday with, also went into the Army and served in Desert Storm. So it was kind of something that I think may have been embedded into me. I don't know that I really put a lot of thought behind it when I actually joined, because I was 16 and I didn't even ask my mom. I talked to a recruiter and was kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And then told her I needed her to meet me somewhere after school. And she did, and was completely blindsided, but she signed the paperwork anyway, because she already knew like I was going to do it. So I was 16 actually when I joined. And I was able to join the Guard at that time and actually start serving at 16. And so it just seemed like at the time I had done JROTC. And so it just seemed like, a continuation or something that was just embedded in me, honestly. I knew I was going to go to college, or I thought I was going to go to college, but I knew I was going to go to the military. So.
That's incredible. Wow. Such a long line of folks who have served, which is amazing. And I was in JROTC too, by the way. That should be one of my topics of what's something no one knows about me, but I was in, and I led my platoon. So I was proud of that.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, thank you. Too kind, Martin. Martin, share with us, what motivated you?
Well, I mean, it was a mix of a lot of different things. One, I had a family in the intelligence community, and so I knew that one of the paths to get into the intelligence community was through military intelligence. And so that's the career path I chose from the beginning. But A couple other factors. One, I really wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I thought that, it was going to be, it was a for sure thing, right? Like I'm going to go through it. Like I was in great shape. I knew, what needed to be done. And so really wanted to be a SEAL. One of the feeder, we call them, now I'm having a brain for it. One of the ratings that feed into the SEALs was intelligence. So I could go in, you could go to Intel school, learn how to do intelligence analysis, and then I can go off to BUDS, or basic SEALs training. And so that was part of it. And then the other thing too was, and I enlisted like straight out of high school. And it was just, I had the opportunity to go to Oregon State on a scholarship, and I just did not enjoy school at the time. And so I knew that if I went to college right off the bat, I probably wasn't going to do well. And I knew if I did an off year, which now tends to be kind of a popular thing, but I just knew that if I took an off year, there was a high chance I wasn't going to go back. And so I thought it's probably the most responsible thing for me to do, given that, the other options on the table weren't as productive or desired.
Wow, that is incredible. And it's interesting. Yeah, because I'm like, what would have you be motivated at that age to be a Navy SEAL, and think of it from that perspective. And it's, I mean, you kind of like took the path, which kind of goes into my next question. I guess, I mean, you wanted to be in intelligence. That was the career that you saw in the end. I mean, and if anything else, feel free to mention. But Akira, if you can tell me as well, what was your career path during the service? And then did you have ideas post-military, or did you think that was going to be like you were going to have a lifelong career in the military?
So when I initially went into the military, the career that I ended up being placed in was not the one that I chose, or even the one that I wanted, which is probably why I will never forget the recruiter's name. But I sat down with him, and they give you like a list of jobs, and they're like, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I specifically was like, "I want to work in tech. I want to deal with at least as many people as possible. I really want to be like behind the scenes, all of the good stuff." And he was like, "Yeah, okay." And then I ended up in HR school, and was not. I was not happy. And then what he took from that was, "Oh, yeah, you said I thought you said you wanted to work with computers. This is definitely a computer job, and you'll do great at it." And even though I was angry at him, like, he was right. So I ended up being in human resources. At the time, it was just considered just basic clerical. But it is everything that human resources does, just a little bit different. So I ended up being in human resources. Was not the career path initially, of course, that I wanted. And even post-military definitely wasn't one that I kind of thought about staying in, because even when I went to school, I wanted my major to be in psychology. So definitely wanted to even get away from just all of those specific dealings with employment and things of that nature. But of course, here I am 18 years later, and still in a form or variation of human resources. So I guess Staff Sergeant Webb was right about that one thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you said he was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem," but maybe kind of saw that there was potential for you in HR. That's great. Martin, how about yourself?
I mean, I knew I wanted to do Intel from the beginning, and I didn't really know where it was going to lead. I mean, when you're 18 years old, you think intelligence is like figuring out what is really stored in Area 51, and who really, what really happened to JFK, and like all that kind of stuff. And so you get in. I don't know. I mean, I didn't get into it thinking like really understanding what the career path was going to be. I just knew that I had family in it, and I wanted to see what was behind the curtain. I was so curious. And so for the post-military career side of things, I mean, the nice thing about intelligence is if you wanted to continue working for the government, I mean, there were plenty of opportunities, but also when you're in the intelligence community, whether you're in the military or not, you learn a ton about data analytics and about trend analysis, about understanding people, reading body language, and you have a bunch of different disciplines within the intelligence umbrella that plays really well into a lot of different career opportunities. So you learn a lot about all the different parts of software that you can use. So, I mean, it really kind of opened up to a broad field. I mean, in addition to all of that, you're given a security clearance, which speaks volumes about how trustworthy you are. And so it makes for an ideal position when you're ready to get out of the military, because I mean, you have everything that an employer generally wants to try to find in somebody. And so, it kind of opened up a lot of opportunities.
Yes, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, and that's funny that you said the things about, like, where, like, you said JFK, but I thought Hoffa, or, all these things that intelligence would, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So and watch a lot of films. So I'm like, oh, that would be great. Before we move on, I wanted to introduce our third guest, and hopefully a tiebreaker in this whole thing. Andy Sutter, I apologize, we had some technical issues, but happy that you're here. Really excited to have you. And Andy, first of all, what branch of the military did you serve in? We have you're a tiebreaker potentially. You can unmute.
There we go. You got me?
We got you.
All right. Sorry about this. Totally my fault. I didn't see the email. Yes. So I was in the Navy.
Okay. I knew that.
Let's go.
All right. Calm down. So yeah, so that's okay. Kira's by herself. She's Army. So there was a little bit of a battle going on, but that's okay. But Kira's tough. So she's the way of everybody. She's handling 2 Army folks against 2 Navy people here. So that's okay. So thank you for joining us, Andy. We actually were just going through these questions Martin and Kira just answered. Really quickly before we jump to our next question, just want to know, like, what motivated you to join? And as far as your career path during the service, did you already kind of have an idea for what you do now?
So why did I join? I was poor in upstate New York and didn't really have many options. And my godfather told me I was going to join the military. So there you go.
Yeah.
Did the military prepare me to be an entrepreneur and own my own franchise? Hell yes. I mean, everything that the Navy teaches you, but you don't realize it while you're in the Navy until you retire from the Navy. You don't realize they're teaching you attention to detail, honor, courage, and commitment, your values, your integrity, being a business owner. That all lies into who you've become. And I didn't really understand that until I became a business owner.
That is fantastic. So there seems to be a theme with the 3 of you, that there is, like, that definitely did set up a path for post-military for your career. Just some of the skill set, whether you knew it or not, and led to some of the strengths that you have now. So the next is, now want to talk about post-military life, right? And if you wouldn't mind, Andy, I'll go to you first. If you could just describe briefly the transition from military to civilian life and to your business.
Transition from military to civilian life. I'll tell you a story. I was nervous. I called my wife. I walked into the front door of my house. I started crying because I told her I could not be a civilian. She hugged me and she laughed. And I said, if I was in Iraq right now, everything would be okay. And she laughed and she's like, oh. Now keep in mind, I am 6'1", 230 pounds, and my wife is much smaller than me. She's patting me on the back going, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be fine. And I was like, you're gonna stop laughing. Yeah. Transition sucks.
Got it. Yeah. No, it's especially if you spent, and how many years did you spend in the military?
I did just over 26 years.
Wow. Yeah. So that was, yeah. And from when you were younger to, to your adult life. Yeah. I can imagine that that must have been a tough transition. How about you, Martin?
So, I mean, for me, it was a lot easier. I had a lot of defense contractors that were just waiting for the opportunity to take anybody out of the intelligence community. So, that transition piece was easy. I mean, there was already a couple of opportunities that I had waiting on the outside. I'll tell you the thing that there are a couple of things that are very challenging. One, there's a substantial amount of your income in the military that is not taxed. And so that first time that you start collecting a paycheck, even though that paycheck is a lot bigger on the civilian side, the gross is bigger, but the taxes are just, you're not planning on it. You're not expecting it. The other part is, and I think that this is probably more true for Navy than it is for the other branches, especially because we spend so much time on ships, but your entire world is right there. And it's so convenient. I mean, you've got the mess right there on the ship, so you don't have to go anywhere for food, and you don't have to pay for the food. You've got your rack or your bed right there. You've got all of your possessions right there. I mean, everything is kind of provided for you on a level that you don't necessarily find anywhere else. Even the medical, I mean, you've got dental, you've got doctors, you've got all of it. And having to, when you're no longer able to go to, as an example, and I got out of the military in Hawaii, so it's a nice, beautiful place to live and everything. But when you're used to shopping at the commissary, which is the grocery store on base, and paying, I don't know, maybe, $1, $1.25, $1.50 for a gallon of milk. And then you're out of it. You're no longer in the military, and you have to go to the normal grocery store and pay $6 for a gallon of milk. It's a big difference. And so, so those are the things that kind of stick out to me when you're going through transition, if you're not really planning on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the military definitely does have programs that help you with that transition. We used to call it TAPS. I think they changed the name of it, but they teach you how to write a resume. They teach you how to find a job. They teach you how do you dress for an interview, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, other than that, I think my experience was pretty pleasant.
Well, that is definitely great to hear, because, we definitely hear about a lot of veterans who do leave the military. And, it just sounds like, Andy, it was just hard to get used to, but we hear some really rough stories about the transition, and there's not enough support for veterans afterwards, depending on where you're at and what you have waiting for you when you leave. Kira, would you agree with that? Or, how was your experience?
So yeah, because I was in human resources, so I saw a lot of the transitions, actually assisted with a lot of the transitions. Transitions are really rough. I mean, you literally go, and to just piggyback off of what Martin said, it's definitely a different way of life and a different way of living when you are in the military and when you are dealing with other people who are in the military. You move different, you talk different, you react different to different situations, just because the people there are like you, regardless of gender or race. I mean, they're literally like you, and you get comfortable with them in a way that would be unpleasant in the civilian world, or people would tend to look at you in a weird way. If they really saw, like, on the back end, how military individuals really act towards one another. So that transition is always difficult when you are going into definitely new workplaces, having to actually get up in the morning and pick out clothes. Oftentimes actually, actually having to be like, oh, does this match? Also for a lot of us, like, being able to wear your hair differently. like, oh, I don't have to wear a bun today, or no, the bun's not going to really work today.
Mhm.
Feeling naked without your cover on, for the first few times when you're ready to go in somewhere. So there's a lot of just a little nuances there that a lot of military people experience. Or literally the first time that you are in a situation where one of your colleagues comes to you and you really, really feel like they're being weak about something, and you immediately want to be like, you know, you need to get it together. And then you're like, wait, like, I can't say that in this setting. But if I were back, at my unit, I would just say, so there are a lot of different nuances that I think that those are the things that you really think about, and those are the things that you're going to miss, because those are the things that, depending on how much time you've spent, they've literally become part of who you are, and they're embedded in you. And so trying to adjust to a different way of other people, it can be a little bit different.
Now that makes a lot of sense. I actually, I think I've shared this with you, but my dad is from Panama, and when he came to this country, he's one of 7 boys or men, and then he has 3 sisters, and all of my uncles, except for my dad, went to the military. They all joined all the different ones. So my uncles, a couple of them, they retired at E9 ranking, like all of them, but they were in each one. And yeah, it was definitely very different. And all my cousins who are Army brats, it's like a very different. So I didn't even think about the having to find what to wear, things like that. Just kind of like, because you were like, oh, I have to wear this today. This is what I did
Yeah.
in your hair. Like, oh, well, how should I wear my hair? It's like, oh no, there's only like one option.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it sounds like that. And then even being able to communicate with people in a way that is, and I know that that has to be completely different, because I know there's could be potentially more rigid
Yes.
in the military. And then people, when you try to interact with them, depending on who they are, they may not take it so well. So, but I'm from New York, so that's okay. Yeah, okay, cool. So now, I want to talk about some of the myths, right? There's a lot of myths out there in general about different identities, but especially I think about military and veterans in particular. And so, what are some of the myths about those currently serving, and then those who have retired or moved on? So I don't know who wants to take this first.
I can go first.
Okay, good.
The biggest myth that I think is always funny is that somehow people think that um, whenever you go into the military, that it's like signing some type of rat contract or something. And that all of a sudden somebody's going to come and drop, millions and millions of dollars at your door because you've signed up to go to the military, which is not the case. Our service members work very hard for what they earn. And a lot of times, the sacrifice that they make is not anywhere near worth the deposit that comes into the account. So that's one of the biggest myths that I often see. But the other one is that that their skills aren't easily transferable, or that you know a lot of companies are scared of the rigidness of military individuals. They're scared of the things that they don't know, the lack.
Oh, we good.
That,
Oh, you froze a little, Akira.
oh, I'm back. Can you hear
Yeah,
me
you're
now?
back. I thought it was me. I was like, oh no, am I in a weird position? But we're good.
Um,
Okay, go ahead.
Having to deal with individuals that have disabilities that you may not be able to easily see. A lot of companies just feel like it's better to stay away from that. I actually interviewed with a company many, many years ago, and one of the questions that I got asked was, are you military, military? And I was looking like, I don't know what you mean by are you military, military? And what they were saying was, are you very strict? Are you strict? Are you direct? Do you lack personable skills, right? So that's a lot of times what individuals think, and it's somehow that because we went into the military and we are trained to observe danger, or we are trained, to be the way that we somehow are not funny or extroverted, or that we don't know how to let our hair down, and that is how we will convey into the workplace, which is the biggest myth that you will ever find. We know how to get the job done, and we set very clear expectations on that, but very personable individuals, you know funny, all of the same things that you find in the civilian world. So.
That's so interesting that you said that. So I'm here being vulnerable, and I have to admit, yeah, when I was, I'll use Martin since this is a real example.
boy.
I was worried that he might be really, I like a little rigidity, to be honest. I'm pretty structured, and so I like it, but I didn't know how it would be. Not working with him, since I got to know him, obviously it was different, but having that mindset, I think a lot of people feel that way, right? And I feel like I can handle it, but I think a lot of people, it might hinder whether someone being hired, like you said, to your point, or feeling comfortable working with that person when they are hired. So I can imagine that can be tough. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a really, really, really good point, and a myth that we hopefully debunk here. So Andy, I'm going to jump to you. You're muted, Andy. I'm sorry.
Somebody keeps muting me. Who's muting me? So rigidity without flexibility. That's what I'm going to add. That's what I see. When I joined the new BNI group, when I got to Newport News in Virginia, the gentleman asked me, well, you're a BNI ambassador. You've been in BNI so long in your military. I'm afraid that you're going to come in here and you're going to not be so fun. And I'm like one of the funniest dudes you've ever met. And so that's one of the myths that you'll see. But other than that, I think can't say Akia.
Akira.
How you say your name? Akira. Damn good response.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Andy. Martin, you have anything else to add to that?
That we cuss too much, which is a bunch of no, I'm just kidding.
No, that's true. That's not a
It
myth.
is true.
That's
definitely
definitely true. We
Pass
love
the-
our sentence
Pass the
enhancers.
frickin' butter.
Yeah. So I think that a couple of things. One is, people went into the military because it was the easy route, and they didn't have a lot of responsibility and stuff like that. What you'll actually find is, and Andy can probably relate to this, but when you're on a ship, and I was on an aircraft carrier, you've got 20-year-olds in charge of multi-million-dollar aircraft and weapon systems and all of that. That is just the level of responsibility that the military has for these very young, I don't want to call them kids, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, they're very young people. There's that kind of responsibility. You don't find that anywhere outside of the military at that age. Another one is undereducated. And especially when you look at the enlisted side of the military, a lot of people think like, and I'm, as an example, I went into the military because I didn't want to go to college right away. And so I had to deal with that a little bit myself. But the reality is, when you get through all the training that the military puts you through, not only are you very well educated, but you also learn how to learn a lot more effectively than I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people go to college right out of high school and they struggle because they haven't really learned how to learn. But the military does definitely teach you a better way of learning and taking things more seriously. So I think, those are another one of the myths, though, I would say, is that we all suffer PTSD. And that's not necessarily true. And some of us have been through really harrowing situations and we still don't necessarily suffer from PTSD, or that we're all the same. And while we do have a lot of similarities when it comes to more of our ethos, the reality is we all have very different angles we take, different, I've met people through the military and in the military that are hilarious, like Andy was talking about, and people that are just very plain, great detail orientation, but just aren't, the biggest excitement in the room. The military is not too different than anywhere else in the world. You're going to find a big group of people from various cultures, and And so you learn how to work with that effectively, and you learn how to respect that and how to honor everybody's differences.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, to the point of school, like choosing this as the easy way as opposed to school. I definitely think that that's a myth that's been out there for a long time. And I know a young woman now; she's a sophomore at Texas A&M in ROTC. Like she was really like her path was to actually join the military after college, but it's still the career she's choosing. And so it's interesting what you're saying is, that it's not, that it's something that's not thought through. I have heard of people like Andy's path, that it's like, okay, we did need the money, or, maybe sometimes it will provide maybe more structure in my life. I'm not sure what to do. So there's different reasons there. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's definitely something that has been a myth that's been out there for some time. We are
I mean,
running.
I can tell you, like, I mean, when I was looking at the military or college, I know that if I had gone straight into college, I very low probability that I would have graduated. Very low probability.
And that's why we have
after going through what's that?
Well, I was going to say that's hence the NASA student debt issue. People have a lot of debt out there and they haven't even completed school, which is another crisis.
School, yeah.
Yeah.
But after going through the military and then going to college later, while I was still in the military, I graduated summa cum laude, and that would not have been possible had I not had the foundation that the military had given me in terms of discipline. So I think that was a big part.
I love it. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I want to know from you all, again, because I think we have a mix of folks that are here and of course that are going to be watching this later. But so, any advice, any suggestions or ideas that'll make it easier for those possibly considering, or not just enlisting, but being a part of the military. So does anyone have anything quick? We have a couple more questions and then we have some in the chat.
Join the military. So you come out of 4 years, you can go to college and then not have any college debt. Because the college debt and what we put kids through nowadays, there's no freaking return on your investment if you go to school to get a liberal arts degree to be a janitor, right? Now, if you want to be a doctor, go to college, right? But there are a whole lot of things. Go to a trade school. I put my son through a trade school and he's making 80 grand a year fixing airplanes. It's okay to be a blue collar worker. Quit listening to your parents that are telling you that you have to go to college. No, you don't. Join the military, get a 4-year education in the military, go to ODU or whatever college you want to go to and come out and then get into the workforce. You're going to crush everybody.
Yeah,
sorry. If I
it's
cursed,
okay. You're passionate
sorry.
about it. I listen as a parent who is of a senior in college, and now he's going to go to law school. I appreciate what you're saying.
Listen,
Andy is definitely a Hampton Roads guy. I heard him say ODU.
There are benefits of going to college, but you cannot go to college and get a liberal arts degree and be $35,000 in debt like the young lady that works for me. I call her young. She is young compared to me. She's 43 years old. She's got $35,000 worth of debt. She has an art degree. What are you going to do with an art degree? Nothing. Go be a blue collar worker. It's okay.
Yeah, well, I think it just gives, there's other paths. And I think that that's something that is not usually talked about at the high school level, right? They have a college and career option, but they don't often talk about the military, I would imagine, in a lot of those conversations. So that I think that's a great point.
They don't want kids to die coming out of high school, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Anyone else have any other advice?
I would say that the military is not going to change anything in you that you're not willing to change yourself.
Amen, sister.
So don't go into the military thinking that somehow you are going to, come out washed and refreshed if you are not willing to do the work, right? The military, regardless of what branch you go to, it is challenging mentally, emotionally, and oftentimes physically. And the military expects you to do the work in order to be able to see the result. So if you're not willing to do the work, you're not going to get the result, right? And so don't go into it thinking that somehow you're going to have this result and be able to do minimal work. it is fun, but it is tough. And so you have to be up for the challenge before, you know, you sign your paper on that dotted line. The other thing that I would say is, just coming from an HR standpoint, do not go AWOL, because when you go AWOL, you do forfeit yourself of anything else that you will be able to get otherwise. So just be very intentional with your decision, and really map out a game plan and set achievable goals. And then start checking those goals off of that list if you're going to join the military.
That's very great advice. And I wouldn't expect you to not share some HR sound advice. So thank you. Martin, did you have anything?
I would give the same advice that I've given my kids every day. And it's do the absolute best you can at everything you have the opportunity to perform at. Because as you do that, doors will remain open for you. And the more doors that you have open to you, you get to choose what direction you want to go. The military is no different. And if you, you get opportunities to go and do flag ceremonies. You get opportunities to go and do burials at sea. You get opportunities to go and meet people and do a lot of service-based projects and all that stuff. And if you take the opportunity to do the best you can at everything that you get the opportunity to do, doors are open to you. If you don't, the alternative is somebody else gets to make the decisions for you. And I see a lot of times people come into the military very half-hearted, and they have no guidance and they have no discipline. They have no desire. They just knew that they wanted to get out of the hometown or whatever. And it really depends on who they end up interacting with when they're in the military. And if they give it their all, and if they don't, then the decision is quite often made for them on what path they're going to take, when they get promoted, when they don't, what career paths are open to them in the military. And just one, quick example on that: before you can go into the military, you have to take an Armed Forces Aptitude Battery, the ASVAB, vocational aptitude battery. And where you score on that is, it depends on what options you have available to you as an enlisted, what we call rating. Army calls it their MOS. And the higher your score, the more opportunities and options you have available to you. The lower your score, the fewer opportunities you have available to you. And it's literally just based on how you do on that exam. So take your ASVAB twice. You have the opportunity to do that, and just do the best that you possibly can at whatever you're given the opportunity to do when you're in the military.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, it's pretty common, right? Everywhere throughout. Just do your best and do what you love, I would say too, right? If you're not, so I think with Akira, your point of making sure that there is, making sure that you think it through. You're not just signing stuff to like run away or get out, or it's going to fix you or change you right away. You have to really think out about, this is a long-term commitment that you're signing up for. So of course, this is diversity. And so we have to ask the question, in what ways did diversity play a role in your current outlook? So I just want to hear from, if you have anything, if you can each limit it to a minute, that would be great.
I mean, I can tell you, I grew up in Reno, Nevada. I grew up on a ranch, and I wasn't around a lot of diversity. We did have the majority of our diversity was, of our population was Caucasian, Indian, and Hispanic, and very little Black or African American. And so I really didn't. Growing up, I never really experienced any race inequality or anything like that. But I'll tell you, like when I was in boot camp, it was the first time I had ever experienced anything different. And one of the guys that worked for me, he was African American, and he was very blunt with me. He's like, "I'm not going to trust anything you say because you're white." And I'm like, I thought maybe he's joking. Like, are you serious? And he's like, "I've never had a white person do anything good for me." and it took me back. And so from that point on, it was profound to me that we still have that level of inequality. And so that had a big impact for me. If I didn't have, if I wasn't in the military, I don't know that I would have had quite that level of exposure to just the difference and what it's like in different parts of the country.
Yeah, no, I definitely, that's one thing that I know is that the military is all races. There's so many differences, at least racial diversity. And then of course, gender started to become a lot more even over time as well. There was some other diversity that I think is still probably lacking, not as much. But Akira, I'd love to hear your answer. And Andy, if you have anything to add. So Akira, go ahead.
So for me in particular, one of the things that we did get to do the first time is kind of pick the barracks that we were going to stay in. And so I specifically chose a room that kind of had like, we had one girl in there, she was Korean. And then we had one girl in there who, much like Martin, had just never been outside of her hometown. She had never even spent the night at her friend's house. Never spent the
That's not like Martin. Martin spent
not like not like Martin in that way, but
Yeah.
just
Wow.
in her, I mean, even in the town that she grew up in, it was predominantly Caucasian. I don't even think she had there wasn't even a large presence of African American or Hispanics where she grew up. But it was just so funny that she even had never spent the night at a friend's house, so she thought this was going to be like a big sleepover. So she ended up being in our room, and just some other people from just different cultures. There was a girl in there who was Hawaiian. And just what I really, really liked about that in particular is that we just all shared for a brief moment. Like her name was Hong, but she taught us like how to write in Korean, which I thought was like super funny. And then we just shared like these little different nuances. And of course, ultimately, everybody wanted to be a part of our room, because what had happened is we ended up being the only barracks that had like different people that were from different places. Most of the people that were from Louisiana, they flocked together. Or if we're from Mississippi, we flocked together. Those of us that were from North Carolina, hey, this is a North Carolina room. So I thought that was interesting, in that even being so far away from home, people tend to want to gravitate toward the like-mindedness of other people, or whatever their comfort is. And so really choosing that was fun for us. We really had a great time, and people loved coming over to our barracks. We got in a lot of trouble, but it was fun.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun. Yeah, no, that is great, Oh, so interesting. Oh, I want to ask Andy quick, and then I will answer. Normally, usually asks me questions. So, but Andy, why don't you go ahead if you have anything to add? You're muted again. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we asked.
Poor Andy.
Well, I'm on my phone. You mute me every time.
Yeah.
Diversity. You join boot camp. It's diversity, right? I come from a little white town in upstate New York. Not a whole lot of African Americans there. Go to boot camp. Oh, holy cow, where are you from? Chicago. It's forced on you. One thing that I think probably was instrumental in my career, when I was on the Eisenhower in 1992, they were bringing women into the ship, and they were bringing them to our berthing, and we did not like that. And you could understand a bunch of young men not wanting women on the ship. And on the 1MC of the ship's 1MC, the announcing system, they said, OI division, muster in your berthing with a command master chief, the executive officer, and the master at arms. And they were like, get your crap and move. The women are coming in here, and we did not like it. But you will quickly learn, they don't have HR in the Navy. Like, you better grow up and get a set of, anyway, go ahead. You can mute me now.
Love it. Perfect. Yeah, you can mute yourself.
1 minute. You said 1 minute. I did.
Yep.
I did
No,
1 minute. I
I
haven't
love
been
it.
muting myself. Somebody's muting me.
I'm gonna
Steve's doing
answer
it.
those questions in a minute. I want to get to, this is important, and if you're able to, you can certainly just put stuff in the chat. I know that Andy's on his phone, so it might be a little different, but are there any resources, if there was one resource that you can give on gaining a better understanding about the military service or returning to civilian life, whether it's a book, movie, documentary, podcast, website, what would that be? Really quick, Martin.
So I recommend the book by Admiral McRaven called Make Your Bed. It trails off of the speech he gave to Texas, University of Texas, and it's great. It just has a lot of the discipline facts that he learned when he went through while he was a SEAL. The other thing I would say on the exiting side of the military, when you're returning to civilian life, go on to Google and just search for veteran-owned businesses near me. And you will find veteran-owned businesses around you that are often looking to hire other veterans. And there are a lot of franchises out there that really want veteran owners. Just an example of that is J-Dog Junk Removal. They really like to work with prior military. So there are a lot of opportunities out there if you want to get more into the entrepreneurial side. There are different financing and loans that are available to vets that aren't necessarily to everybody else. So if find another vet that is where you want to be, and just take them out to coffee and say, how do I get there? What do I need to do?
Perfect. Thank you. Andy, and then Akira. Andy, did you
Also
have any?
reach out to the Veterans Administration. Veterans Administration. If you can get out to the Veterans Administration near you, it's a great place to go.
Love it. Thank you. Akira.
I would say just stay close to those relationships that you've made while you were there. Just maintaining that contact, maintaining those relationships, and really building on those relationships a little bit deeper as you start to transition out. Will definitely be helpful and provide a lot of resources. I also say the VA as well. Get in there, start volunteering, start going to talk to a lot of the veterans that are in there, kind of seeing things from their perspective, having those conversations. It definitely gives you that feeling of being close to something that you've become accustomed to.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I could tell,
networking too. Network.
I was just going to say, so like what Akira just talked about is something that we are very familiar here with BNI. Why do people go to Harvard or Yale or Berkeley?
Because
it's
when
not
you get
because
out
the
of that
education
school,
is so much better than some other place. It's because of the network that you establish in those locations. And
VMI grads hire VMI grads.
Yep, that's true. That's absolutely true. And so if we really understand the power of networking in BNI, and what Akira is saying is true, that when you're in the military, you have access to a network, big, vast, and we all have something similar to lean against when we're with each other. So that's great advice, Akira.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all so much. And I know that Steve dropped in the chat a couple of those links as well. So now it's time for Q&A. I know I have to read the question that Martin said for myself and Steve. Do you ever wish you had joined the military? So there were moments, I pretty much knew I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I wanted to be one of the first females on ESPN. That's what I wanted to do. I was a journalist in high school and or be on TV or something like that. But that was what I wanted to do, or then psychology or sports psychology, but something in that realm. But it did cross my mind, right? Because at the moment, and for some of the myths that you, not that I needed to sort myself out. I was always pretty regimented. I was a good girl. I didn't party or anything. So I did consider it, but I feel I'm a bit of a pacifist. So I thought the yelling probably would get to me. So I was like, no, I'm gentle, but people often think I'm rigid anyway. But of course I have thought of it. And even afterwards, even when I was going through a divorce, I had contemplated the military. I had thought maybe this would provide something for myself and my son because I didn't have a good setup, going out of my marriage. It was pretty tumultuous. So I had considered it then as well. And then my son had also the same conversation with me when he was deciding in college. He was like talking to the recruiters and everything. So, but it's interesting. I don't know if Steve is available to speak at this time, but
I see Steve mentioned in the chat he was a Cub Scout and his family either went college or joined NYPD. I just look at Steve, I'm like, I can see him being NYPD. Doesn't he just look like he could play the part?
Yeah.
and then
Hill
he's a
Street-
copywriter.
You got a TV opportunity. You got to go get on like NCIS or something like that.
Right.
Because he's-
No,
because
man.
he's- yeah, he was a good
He's
cop.
got
Yeah,
to bring
he's
back
into
Hill Street Blues. He'll bring back Hill Street Blues. That's what we need.
yeah, I know it's weird. If you know Steve well, then you know that is not a match. But yes,
Yeah,
by,
that's great.
by looking, yes, you would think that. And especially him and I grew up in New York. A lot of people, I grew up on Staten Island, which is coined Copland. A lot of people end up taking that path. But yeah, so if you have any questions, some of you put stuff in the chat, which is a little tough for me to see. I'll see if I can try to find some, but if you can.
I can read them if you want.
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Ash Williams said, my grandfather was in the Air Force during the Korean War. And the first CEO I worked for in New York City was from Navy intelligence. He ran a private equity firm. His training on how to think, focus, learn, and be very careful about what you put in writing says a lot. It was invaluable. I think every person in high school should have a military course. I'm a big believer that I feel like everybody should have to go through boot camp, and even if they don't serve after that. I just feel like there's so much you learn in such a short amount of time. It's I see Akira nodding up and down, and Andy had mentioned before attention to detail. I don't want to make it more dramatic than it is. But they beat it into you, like you, and it's not just you. Your entire division suffers when you mess up, and so you know that you have a lot of weight on your shoulders, and you got to get it down.
When I joined, and let me jump on that, Martin. When you're folding your clothes and you're undoing all of your buttons and you're folding your clothes inside out, you think, well, all they're trying to do is teach you how to fold your clothes and make your rack. You don't realize until you're older that, oh, that's all attention to detail stuff that you pay attention to. So when I run my company, I have 3 Freedom Boat Club locations. And I have 43 employees in the summer, and we have 25 boats. And they're like, you see everything. And I'm like, let me show you how to fold your clothes.
Yeah, right. So, kind of a funny story about that, Andy. So I had a trip with Andrew Johnson. He's our director of launch. And he's got this huge suitcase full of clothes. And I'm like, why? We're out here for 3 days. Why do you have all that? He's like, you didn't pack any clothes. And I got suits. I got jackets, ties, suits, all of it. And I got this little carry-on. And he's like, well, I don't want to iron my clothes. And I said, neither do I. And he says, well, I don't understand. You're going to have to show me how to fold it. I still, to this day, fold my clothes the same way I learned in boot camp, because it puts the creases in the right spots to where you don't have to iron them. And you fit so much stuff in one spot. It's so funny.
Well,
I make
have to
my
teach
bed. I make my bed every morning. Every morning I make my side of the bed. It drives my wife nuts. She's still in bed when I make my side.
Well, she's still in it.
Yeah. The bed's getting made up regardless of who's in it. But the thing about it that is so funny is that you are right. You learn so much without knowing that you're learning. I can remember the bus ride over to boot camp and just being told to close your eyes and put your head down because you're not allowed to see where you're going. And then the bus stops and there's all of this anticipation, right? And then you're told, and then the yelling starts and you've got like
Immediately.
6 or 7 drill sergeants that are in your face. And they are telling you, you've got a front load, you've got a back load, and you've got to get off the bus. And then they say, everybody needs to line up on this line and everybody needs to line their duffel bags on this line and it needs to be straight. And then you just see all of these people that are literally scrambling around, like trying to put their bag on a line that literally does not exist, right? And then people are frustrated and other people are yelling and all of this stuff is going on. And then you come to realize that the purpose of it is to see who is going to step back from the organized chaos. Because first off, there's not a line for you to put your bag on. What are you running around for anyway? Just drop your bags. Because regardless, you're going to have to do push-ups, right? So just stand there. And then you would have people that would be complaining, and it's like, oh my God, like, why do we always have to do push-ups? Why is this? Well, because when it comes to your PT test, guess what you're going to do? You're going to pass, because you have literally, we used to call it getting real estate, right? And the more real estate that you acquire, the more real estate that you own, the higher the score that you literally get. But it would just be so funny to see like the perspective of individuals when they are trying to get off of that bus and drop their duffel bags on a line that does not exist, just to keep from doing something that inevitably you're going to have to do anyway. And the amount of people that break, I mean, at the first sight of someone getting in your face and just yelling at you. And then honestly, 4 weeks from that, the one person that broke down on day one with tears and crying and snot because somebody was yelling at them, it doesn't even faze them. Like 4 weeks later down the road, when that person is literally on their heels telling them, get down the stairs, private, like get right now. I'm telling you, you need to move. And they're just hustling along, and you're like, look, no tears, right? So all of those little things are the things that you kind of keep in the back of your head. So when days get tough, you know, you're constantly telling yourself like, push. You have it in you to kind of be your own drill sergeant and kind of keep motivating yourself or keep pushing yourself along. So
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. A lot of these things, maybe I should have gone, because I would have responded better to someone yelling in my face. But thank you so much. We're actually out of time. This went so fast. Thank you, Akira, Martin, and Andy. Please, everyone, make note of their contact information, and make sure join us next month. We're taking a break. So make sure that you join us in January. We're going to talk to transracial adoptees. So we're going to have some folks, if you know people that might be interested in being a part of this panel, feel free to send them, but we already have a couple of folks that are really going to talk about this. This was another topic that was brought up. And so we're really excited to dive deep into this. Again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you for those who serve. Have a great week, great month, great holidays, and we will see you next time.
thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Claudia. Thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.